everyone. Welcome to yet another episode of Practical Marketing Tips for Small Law Firms, where we interview industry experts about proven, used today attorney marketing strategies. I'm your host, Cara Pryor, president of James Publishing, founder of our marketing amplifier system. You know, I spend most of my days really strategizing with lawyers on how to improve their marketing ROI, kind of that ever so precious return on the marketing investment. So we have a great guest today. I'm really excited to welcome Andy Stickel. He's the founder of the marketing agency Social Firestarter. You know, I've really been following Andy's work for some time now. He knows his stuff, he practices what he preaches, and he gets results. So through his free online training, done-for-you services, as well as a coaching program, Andy really shares his expertise with attorneys across the globe. And Andy personally helps lawyers get more clients, be more successful, but while having a sort of rich, fulfilling life outside of work. That's what we all want, right? So I'm super grateful he's agreed to share his knowledge with all of you today. Welcome, Andy.
Thanks for having me. That's actually a really good point. I started recently saying, instead of saying I help lawyers get more clients, I started telling people that I help lawyers improve their lives, because getting more clients isn't always a good thing.
Right.
Sometimes more money equals more problems, I think they say, you know? So yeah, no, that's good. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you. So today we're going to get right down to business. We're going to talk about how to grow your law firm using online reviews. And Andy, you literally wrote the book on this subject, right? Your 5-star attorney book that you have right there.
Got it right here.
Nice.
That's the book.
There it is. Yeah. So let's get right into it, right? So why do online reviews matter? How can reviews actually help law firms attract more clients, you know, increase profits? Let's
Sure.
start there. Yeah.
Well, I think there's the obvious. I mean, everybody, I think at this point, it's funny because when I first started marketing lawyers, I kind of got into it in 2012. So we're almost 10 years away from that now. And when I first started, I used to get pushback like, oh, people don't read online reviews. People don't care about online reviews. And I think that argument is pretty much dead. I don't think there's anyone out there that doesn't think that online reviews aren't important, especially, you know, I think Amazon pretty much crushed that. But the problem is lawyers have a hard time getting online reviews. And, you know, a lot of times lawyers have the same story where it's basically they ask a client to leave a review. The client says, yeah, I'll leave a review. You guys did a great job for me. And then the client just never does it. You know what I mean? So it's a big problem that my clients have. And it's a story I hear over and over and over and over again. So I kind of started trying to figure out, like, why does that happen? And how do I fix that? You know? And then as I kind of went down that road, I started doing more research on reviews. And I started finding all these really interesting things, like how important negative reviews are. For example, most lawyers are just concerned with just getting 5-star reviews, and that's all they focus on, right? But if you have negative reviews, what's actually interesting, and I can't remember the exact statistic right now, but I believe it's something around 84% of people, if they go to your profile and they're reading reviews and all you have is 5-star reviews and there's no negative reviews, 84% of people will not believe those 5-star reviews because they'll think that you made them up, right? So negative reviews give you an opportunity to validate your positive reviews. Now, I'm not saying go crazy and get tons of negative reviews, but, you know, 1 or 2 negative reviews actually helps you more than not having the negative reviews, which is really interesting, you know? And then I started looking into other things like, well, what can you actually learn from negative reviews? Because there's lots of times when you do have, I call them the crazies, you know, crazy people that leave negative reviews, but there's also other times when negative reviews actually do point out a flaw in your law firm, right? So let's say the person who answered the phone was having a bad, excuse me, got the hiccups. The person who answered the phone was having a bad day, and they answered and they were kind of short with the person, and the person hung up and they had a bad taste in the mouth. So they went on and left a bad review. Well, does this happen a lot? You know what I mean? And this is something you can kind of identify because, you know, if you don't know things are happening, then you can't fix them. And what you have to remember is only 5% of people, this is another thing I learned, only 5% of people actually complain publicly or complain at all. So when you get a negative review, you kind of have to look at yourself, is this actually happening in the law firm or is it a crazy person? And take an objective look. Don't just automatically dismiss it because it's your baby. You know what I mean? Nobody wants to hear their baby's ugly, but, you know, if you can identify these problems, then you can actually use them to fix your law firm, and you can actually use them to then get more clients and improve service and actually, you know, so Jay Baer says, to get more positive reviews, you first have to get more negative reviews. You got to figure out what's wrong, because if you don't know what's wrong, you can't fix it, you know? And it's kind of funny because it's like one thing led to another thing, one thing led to another thing. And I just kind of got further and further down this rabbit hole of reviews to the point where I wrote an entire book about it, because I was like, this is really amazing. And I believe at this point, if a lawyer does not have money for marketing, like they don't have a big marketing budget, if they focus on getting as many reviews as physically possible, as humanly possible, that's probably their best use of time, investment, resources, all that type of stuff. That's how important I think reviews are nowadays.
Absolutely. And, Andy, it's interesting what you say about negative reviews specifically, because attorneys tell me all the time, I don't want to ask for reviews at all because I'm scared about those negative reviews coming in, right? They're handcuffed by even the thought of getting those negative reviews, right? So, I mean, what do you say to folks that say, no, I'm not going to ask anyone. I'm not going to ask any of my past clients because, I don't want those negative reviews. I'd rather have, no reviews, no presence than have those negative reviews. How do you kind of respond to that?
Well, so it's kind of tricky. So we actually, I have a software also that I just released called Review Judge. And what Review Judge does is it uses an NPS system. And what happens is, and there's other softwares that do this also, like Bird Eye and Gather Up and Podium and some of the others. And essentially what it does is it uses an NPS score that allows you to determine the temperature of a person. So you can say what we do is we send an email initially that just says, on a scale of 0 to 10, how likely are you to recommend this business, right? Now,
yes,
if they say
net promoter score.
Net promoter score, yeah.
Yeah.
And essentially, it doesn't necessarily matter what it means. It basically just means, are they going to promote you or are they going to leave you a negative review, right?
Right.
Now, what we do is we combine psychology with their temperature, right? So if they say, let's say on a scale of 0 to 10, if they say an 8 or a 9 or a 10, that's probably somebody that would leave you a good review. So we'll take them right to the review. Now, if they say a 0 through 7, then what happens is we'll actually take them to a page where they can still leave a review, because you don't want to not offer them to leave a review, because that's called review gating, and that can cause some bad things. So we don't do that. But what we do is we actually use psychology, and we put some tricks on the page that draw their eyes to certain things. And what that does is it basically says, thank you so much for taking your feedback, or for providing your feedback. We appreciate all feedback, both positive and negative. Would you please tell us what we got wrong, and give us an opportunity to fix it? So there's a text box, they can enter some information. Then we have the links below, but we don't really encourage them to we kind of want to use psychology to draw their eyes away from them. So we make the text box very flashy. And that basically allows you to filter out the negative reviews without breaking any of Google's guidelines or anything like that, But the reality is that I know it's kind of a scary thing, but if you don't have a system like that, it's really difficult if you don't have a system like that. The other thing you could do is you could just send individual emails where you just ask people and you say, hey, I just want to know, is there anything is there anything we could have done to improve our service? How was everything? But really the easiest way to do it is the NPS thing, because then it'll basically fire off a campaign that if they gave a good score, then it'll try to actually get the review right away. If it didn't, it allows them to provide feedback back to you so that you can then hopefully reach out to them and fix whatever the problem is. Because what's interesting is that a lot of times they say there's a saying, it's actually a religious saying, I believe it's there's no zealot like a convert. So basically what that means is that some of your best advocates and the best people that sing your praises are formerly dissatisfied clients. So if someone has a bad experience, you go out of their way to fix the experience. Now, here's the thing. You're not always going to be able to fix the problem, right? So like, let's say they're in a car accident and the driver that hit them didn't have insurance. Like there's no attorney in the world could recover. But maybe what happened was their case was rejected without really giving them a real explanation. So a lot of times you can call them up, you can explain the situation, you can apologize that it wasn't explained clearly. And first of all, understand that you need to do better, when you're handling those situations. But secondly, we've had a lot of clients who have said, I did that. I reached out, I talked to them, and they said, if you would have just explained it to us that way the first time, this never would have been a problem. We never would have left a negative review or anything like that. So it allows you to do a lot of stuff like that, where you can actually intercept them before they leave a negative review, and then you can contact them. And then a lot of times they'll actually leave you that positive review, that 5-star review.
Really smart. Yeah, really smart. So how can law firms get started, right? They don't have a system in place. None of this is
Mhm.
automated. What's kind of the first step to kind of get this going?
They ask. That's the biggest thing is that like most lawyers, like it's not really complicated. The biggest
Right.
problem that most lawyers have is they just don't ask for reviews. Like you said, for that reason, that they're afraid or they just don't have a good system in place. Right. So what's interesting is like I said at the beginning, what ends up happening is lawyers will typically, this is the story that I hear over and over again. They ask, they get a result for a client. They say to the client, "Hey, thanks, thanks for being a client. Would you mind leaving a review?" And the client says, "Sure, I'd love to leave a review." And then the client goes home and never does it. Right?
Mhm.
That's kind of like the standard operating procedure when it comes to reviews. But what's interesting is that there's a lot of psychology at play that it's marketing. That's the funny part is that whether you're trying to get a client or you're trying to get the client to, well, you're trying to get someone to hire you or you're trying to get somebody to leave you a review, everything is psychology and everything is marketing. You have to understand how the human brain works. And then from there, you can actually influence them. Right. Um, so for example, there's a guy named Derek Sivers, and he gave a really interesting TED talk not too long ago. And basically what he said, actually it's probably a couple of years ago now. And he said, you should never tell people your goals. Like if you're trying to lose weight, if you're trying to quit smoking, if you're trying to train for a marathon or whatever, you should never tell anybody your goal, because what happens is when you tell someone your goal, it creates this social reality. All the neurons in your brain and the endorphins get firing. And what happens is it simulates the feeling of accomplishing the goal. Your brain, your subconscious can't tell the difference, right? So you're less likely to lose weight or quit smoking because you just got that good feeling, that satisfaction of quitting smoking, right? So when you ask somebody to leave you a review and they say yes, they probably intend to leave you a review at the time. But what happens is that those neurons start firing, those endorphins start firing, and they get the satisfaction of leaving you a review without actually doing it. And the problem is that there's literally nothing else in it for them other than that good feeling. And they already got it, right? So they get home and then the kids start screaming. They got soccer practice. They have to cook dinner, work's crazy. We're in the middle of a pandemic, all these different things that are stressing them out, and leaving you a review is literally the last thing that they want to do. So it doesn't happen. Right. So there's a couple pieces of human psychology that you can use for this. So like, one of the books I read recently was called Influence by Robert Cialdini. I think it's Cialdini. I can't remember how to pronounce the guy's name. But he talks about this study that was done at Harvard in the 70s. And what's interesting is that it was this lady, her name is Ellen Langer. She's a social psychologist. And she wanted to learn how to, she wanted to see what motivated people to do things, right? And she basically tried cutting in line for the Xerox machine. So she went in line and she had a stack of papers, and there's always a line for the Xerox machine. So she went to the front and she wanted to see if she could cut in line. So she said, "Hey, listen, I'm going to rush. My class is starting in like 5 minutes. Do you mind if I just hop in the front of the line here and make some copies?" And she was allowed to cut 94% of the time. And then she started kind of giving weaker and weaker and weaker excuses. So like she gave an excuse. She's like, "Hey, can I make some copies? I'm in a rush." And then she said, "I need to make some copy, or can I cut in line? I need to make some copies," which is like a terrible excuse because everybody was there to make copies, right? But every single time she was able to cut over 94% of the time. And then she went up and just said, "Hey, can I cut in line?" And at that point, she was only allowed to cut in 60% of the time. So what that taught was that if you give people a reason that you need them to comply, it doesn't matter what it is, they're much more likely to comply. So if you tell people, "Hey, we need this review because it really helps us not only improve the service that we can give to our clients, but it also helps people who are looking for an attorney make a very, very difficult decision. And ultimately, you're helping more people by leaving this review, then they're much more likely to do it." So I know I'm rambling on here, but like
I
there's
love
just so much, there's
Yeah.
so much to it in terms of psychology,
Well, yeah, that's
of just
what I was
things
going
you
to
can
say. The
do.
the
Yeah.
psychological part of it, right? I mean, I think sometimes that's not even considered, and that is so much. That's such a big part of it. And I know something that you talk a lot about is, you know, give people a reason, give them some context, and
Yeah.
and it'll go a long way. So, just quickly, Andy. So, what review sites do you recommend? Are you talking about Google?
Mhm.
Kind of exclusively, or where should attorneys be focusing, at least initially?
I think Google's the most important one because that one has the potential to give you the most immediate results. Because if you get a lot of reviews on Google, you'll actually rank higher. So if you get a lot of reviews, and there's a few specific ways that you can actually rank higher in Google that I can tell you about, which are pretty cool. But Google's really going to be your first line of defense. Like Yelp will tell you that people go to Yelp and search for an attorney. I don't believe it. I've never seen any evidence of it, and I've asked their reps to show me evidence of it. Like, hey, show me your search volume and all stuff, and they've never been able to give it to me. So, I believe that Google is the most important, and then from there, there's Avo, Yelp, lawyers.com, Martindale Hubble, which I believe pulls from Avo now, and I feel like I'm forgetting another one. Avo, Yelp, Google, lawyers.com, Martindale Hubble. I guess it's, and Facebook. Facebook's another one too.
Yeah. Good. So specifically, how does the law firm ask? So are we talking about emails? Are we talking about text messages? Are, how many nudges should kind of be set up? Can some of this be automated?
Yeah. Well, okay. So I think that one of the easiest ways to do it is you have to make sure that somebody has some sort of incentive. And you can't give okay, so this is an unpopular opinion. I have had many clients that have given out Starbucks gift cards to their clients in exchange for the time to leave them a review. Now, obviously, I know that technically you're not supposed to do that. So I don't tell people to do that, although I have seen it done many times and I've seen it work very, very well. And I've never heard of anybody ever getting in trouble for it. That being said, I don't recommend you do that because you're not supposed to. Anyway, so you can read that how you want. But my official answer is you should incentivize your staff to do it. So what that means is that, maybe you have somebody that greets people when they come in. Maybe you have like a receptionist or administrative assistant or whoever sits out at the front whenever people come into your office. Well, give them a $25 or a $50 or even $100 bonus every time somebody leaves a review. And like, you might be thinking, well, that's a lot of money to pay them. But listen, that is your marketing. That is like the absolute best investment you will ever make. You're going to pay that $25 or that $50 one time, but that review will be seen over and over and over and over and over and over and over again for many, many, many years down the line, So when you're talking about a paralegal or an administrative assistant, maybe their salary is $40,000, $50,000 a year. It's not that much, But if they have the opportunity to start making an extra $25, $50 every time they get a review, that's a substantial bonus that's a substantial bump in pay. So you're going to build morale. You're going to get more reviews. You actually got somebody that's actually invested in getting the reviews. So they'll have the follow-ups and all that type of stuff, So in terms of doing it from there, you can, it can be done manually, or you can use a follow-up system like Review Judge, like the software that I have, or you can use Bird Eye or Podium or one of the other ones. I happen to think Review Judge is better for a couple of reasons, but it's not the only thing you can use. It's just, honestly, what it is, it's kind of like, as long as you do something, it's better than nothing. That's really kind of the biggest thing is that if you give someone an incentive and then you have some sort of follow-up system, that's going to be your best bet. But I would say incentive is probably the number one thing.
Good. I love that. And I think dedicating, sort of allocating one specific, staffer, if it's your intake person, if it's legal, that is really smart, because it's just not going to get done if it's on your plate, right? It's just one of those things that you're dedicated to pressing client matters. It's just another item that's kind of
and tie it to a bonus. Look, here's the thing. Like when an employee, because I've got a lot of employees, when employees come to me and they just say, I need a raise. Like, well, we don't just get raises because our paycheck is a direct correlation with the value that we bring. So this is a perfect opportunity for people that want to make more money by bringing more value. And the best way you can bring value is by bringing more, by helping generate more revenue for the business.
Exactly.
Reviews are the best way to do that. It's kind of a no-brainer to me.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so in kind of starting to wrap up here, Andy, how can attorneys kind of create a steady stream of new reviews? This isn't just kind of a one-time thing, one and done, right? And then, you kind of get these dated reviews. What are the secrets, kind of tips to really creating that steady stream, always freshening those reviews?
Well, you have to have a system, right? And because if you don't have a system for doing it, it's not going to work. If you just kind of every once in a while just ask for a review and then just forget about it, it's like everything else. If you go to the gym one day and expect to have six-pack abs, it's not going to happen. It's a way of life. You've got to transform the way that you function. So at the very base, like the very core of it, what you need to do is, first of all, I think you need to dedicate somebody that this is your responsibility, or you can do it for as many attorneys or many people at the staff as possible. I know that Dan Newland, who's a very successful personal injury attorney down here in Florida, he's got like 16,000 active cases. Like, he's a massive firm, and they have every single attorney is required to get, X number of reviews every single month. But what ends up happening is that by running your law firm with the end result in mind, basically by operating with the review in mind at all times, what ends up happening is they do a lot of stuff that ends up, first of all, giving better service, and then like that's how they grew their firm. They're like, I think they're the biggest personal injury law firm out of one office, bigger than Morgan and Morgan, like bigger than everyone. And it's all because they did reviews. Like, that's the whole thing. Like, it's funny because Dan contacted me not too long ago and was like, hey, can you look at my law firm's SEO, or my website's SEO? And we looked at his website, and his website's not, like, the SEO is pretty bad. It's not really that good, but he's like dominating Orlando. And the reason why is because, this is what I mentioned before, if you have words, phrases, and synonyms in your reviews that are related to your practice area, you will rank higher. That's a huge thing. There's a couple different ranking factors that go into it. But when you have a lot of words, phrases, and synonyms that are related to your law firm, Google looks at that as being hyper relevant to whatever the search is. So if someone searches car accident lawyer, for example, right? Google's always trying to find the best result for the searcher. So you can put car accident lawyer all day long on your website, and Google's going to take that in consideration. But if I say I'm a good lawyer, but somebody else says I'm a good lawyer, you're probably going to believe the other person before you're going to believe me, right? So it's the same type of thing. So Google looks at the reviews, and it looks for words, phrases, and synonyms related to, in this instance, car accidents, and being a lawyer and being located in, Orlando, Florida, whatever city. And that's how it figures out how relevant you are to the search, right? So one of the things you need to do is not only get reviews, but you need to get good reviews that actually tell a story. And the way that I always do it is I like asking the following questions, or I tell them, when you leave a review, the best reviews typically will answer the following questions. The first question is, what was the problem that you had prior to coming to our law firm? Why did you select our firm over all other firms? What did we do for you? What was the outcome? And as a result of what is the outcome, that kind of means what was the tangible thing? Like, we got a settlement, or we won the charges were dropped, or I got custody of my kids. And then the last question is, how has this outcome impacted your life? And that's the intangible thing. That's like I got custody of my kids, so now I can coach Little League, and I can finally be the father that I never had. You know what I mean? It's basically how humanize the story, right? Mm-hmm. And what you're doing is you're actually telling a story from beginning, middle to end, right? Here's the problem I had, and then the end of it, here's how this impacted my life. But by answering these questions, they're also they have to get those words, phrases, and synonyms in there. It's impossible not to, right? And you're doing it in a way that is telling a good story. It's going to have a more impactful review, and it's not going to be spammy. You're not saying, Bill is the best Orange County personal injury lawyer. If you need a Orange County car accident lawyer, call Bill to handle all of your Orange County slip and fall needs. You're not doing that. You're actually telling a real story. Yeah.
So real.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's why, like, with Review Judge, what we did, we actually built it so that it's Mad Libs. It's like think Mad Libs for reviews. So basically what we do is when we say, hey, would you like to leave a review? They say yes. We actually have a review builder that actually says, just finish this sentence. And it takes them through there, but it actually, it forces them to write reviews in that way. And like, there's like millions of options there. It's really kind of a cool thing that we did. And that's why people are getting such great results with it, because it makes it so that you have all the elements to be successful with reviews, not just get more reviews, because just getting more reviews is just one part of it. It's not the entire story.
Well, that's brilliant, right? The guiding questions to kind of shape the review. And that's what's going to provide the most value to future clients too, right? They're going
exactly.
to read those reviews. They're humans that want a real picture of the service that you're providing. And those are going to be, definitely the most helpful. So that's great. I love it. Yeah. Okay, so Andy, in wrapping up, tell us a little bit more about Review Judge and how everyone can really connect with you and your team.
Sure. Well, I would say the first thing to do is check out this book, 5-Star Attorney. And you can get it from getlawfirmreviews.com. And I'm really, really proud of this book. This book, I've been getting really, really good good responses on this book. I'm Ben Glass, who's a really well-known attorney. I'm very fortunate and grateful that he actually wrote the foreword to this book, which I think that says a lot about the book because he doesn't put his name on really anything that he doesn't believe in. And he's the OG. He's been doing this forever.
Yeah.
So I would say check out Five-Star Attorney. You can get it at getlawfirmreviews.com. And if you're interested in checking out Review Judge, you can go to reviewjudge.io. So it's reviewjudge.io, not reviewjudge.com. Just reviewjudge.io. And you can check out Review Judge. And it just gives you a demo of the software and you can see kind of what it does. But, honestly, if you're not sure where to start with Five-Star Attorney, start with the book. It's free at that website. Just pay for me to ship it to you, which I think is like $7 or something like that. And hey, if you don't like it, we'll give you your money back, so there's literally nothing to lose.
Yeah.
But reviews, if you don't have a big marketing budget, or whether you have a big marketing budget, or especially if you don't have a big marketing budget, I think that you're crazy not to focus on reviews.
I completely agree. Get the book. Look, I got my own copy right here.
Oh, you got a copy. All right.
I got a copy. Yeah. So we'll send the link with the recording of this episode too. So everyone will be able to link directly there. I highly recommend it. Thank you so much, Andy. This was super helpful. Tons of great tips. I really appreciate your time. It was a pleasure.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, everyone, join us next time for our next episode of Practical Tips for Small Law Firms. Thank you so much. Have a good one. Bye.